Hello again. Now we're going to look at part 2 of the chapter on intellectual disabilities. There are a lot of causes of intellectual disabilities. How many do you think you can name? Well, we're going to look at a few, beginning with slide 3. Fragile X is a chromosomal disorder. Most of the children who have Fragile X have an IQ around the 40 to 84 range, and you'll see that there's a video that tells you a little bit more about Fragile X that I'd like you to watch. So do that and then come back to learn about the next cause of intellectual disabilities. In slide 4, you'll see a link to some information on what is Down syndrome. And it will explain some of that to you. Down syndrome, or trisomy 21. Most of the time, if you see an adult or a child with Down syndrome, you know that right away, because the child or person usually has a pear-shaped body, smaller ears, shortened fingers and toes, have sort of a stubby appearance. The face may be very round, and far and away the majority of the time the person is intellectually challenged, IQ below 70. Hydrocephalus is a condition where too much fluid builds up on the brain, and this is called cerebral spinal fluid. It's a clear liquid that surrounds both the spinal column and the brain, and the child will usually have a head that looks too big for the body. And this can continue all the way through adulthood. What doctors usually do is go in and put a shunt, which is a plastic tube inside the person's skull, and that will drain the fluid. Because what you don't want is for the fluid to continue to build up, and it presses in on the brain, because it's going to make the person more intellectually disabled than they would have been if you could have drained some of that fluid out. And the tube usually runs, again, from the skull down into the body cavity, and the fluid just runs out and is absorbed naturally by the body or released through the urinary tract, and really doesn't cause a problem otherwise. But most children who have hydrocephaly are going to end up with some kind of brain damage, or at least be mildly intellectually disabled. Microcephaly is kind of the opposite. The head is very small because the brain didn't grow in the womb. And when the child is born, the child obviously has a small head. It's usually more than 2 standard deviations below what would be considered normal for its birth age. And you can see some photos of that, and I'll tell you ahead of time, some of those may not make you feel real comfortable, but there are some photos that you can see of children who have microcephaly on the link. Now let's go to slide 7. PraderWilli Syndrome can be another cause of intellectual disabilities. I actually knew a young man one time who had that. Some of the characteristics are that the person wants to eat constantly, and this young man definitely had that characteristic. His mother told me that she literally bought a chain and lock to put around the refrigerator to keep him from eating all day long. And he broke the chain. He was a very large young man and weighed over 300 pounds by the time he got into high school. Sad to say, he didn't live to adulthood. Another condition is Taysachs Disease, which is a genetic condition that happens to some people of Jewish heritage. And you can see a YouTube video about that, so please watch it. Now, what are some other causes? Gestational diabetes in the mother, drug abuse by mother and or father, fetal alcohol syndrome, where one parent or both parents drink heavily during the time the child is either during the time the child was conceived or in that time period, or while the mother's pregnant, she actually ingests too much alcohol. And of course, better no alcohol if you're pregnant, ladies. We should know that. And another condition, PKU, and that's an abbreviation for a very long scientific name, but what it is the child's body cannot absorb the amino acids in milk. And if the child drinks milk, it will actually cause even further brain damage. That means no mother's milk, no store-bought regular milk. The child has to drink a special formula. I was involved with a case of a child who had PKU once a number of years ago when I was a special education director. The child's mother was intellectually disabled. She did not really understand what the nutritionists were telling her at the hospital where he was born, and even though people came to the house and worked with her and explained to her he can only eat these foods and not eat these foods, mother didn't understand. She persisted in feeding him things that he should not eat, things with milk products, cheese, ice cream, things like that. She also let him drink milk, and the child just became more and more disabled. By the time he was in school, he was in a class, he was already moderately intellectually disabled and had to be placed in that type class. So it's kind of sad that some of these conditions, you're born with them, but some can be worsened by lack of following sound medical advice. Well, these children can be included sometimes in regular classes. Special education directors and department heads and principals, though, know if we want to have a child with intellectual disabilities in a regular class for at least part of the day, even if it's not to be graded in the work, it's for social issues. First of all, we need a a regular education teacher who's willing to let the child come in. Hopefully you'll be that kind of teacher who says, hey, I understand this child's needs. Let me know about the IEP. Let me know what he or she is good at and what are the limitations. And let me talk to my class and let them know, hey, you're going to get a new friend who's going to come in here every day for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, or whatever it may be. Let the child come in and visit with your class several times. Let them be comfortable with the student being in there. And when it's determined that that's going to be a good fit for your class, then make sure that the IEP is changed to show that this child is being mainstreamed into your regular class for part of the day. Again, some children come in, you're going to let them do work or participate in experiments maybe in a science class or participate in an art class session or something along those lines. But the child doesn't necessarily get a grade like ABC like other children do. And that's okay, because we're trying to help the child socialize with their non-disabled peers. What are some other strategies that we teachers can use? Well, number one, patience. Patience, patience, patience. Because children with intellectual disabilities are going to have to get multiple exposures to material before they can learn it. They also learn best, just like young children do, by concrete activities, hands-on, using manipulatives to learn basic skills, actually using their shoes to learn how to put shoes on and take them off, putting on a coat, learning how to button it up, zip it, unzip it, if they're in an early childhood class. They also can be student helpers, doing things like wiping the board off, helping clean up the room. It's fine to give them class jobs. Also good to give specific praise. Like, Ronnie, I'm glad that you helped us pick up the pencils that were on the floor. Or, hey there, LaWanda, it was very nice of you to share your crayons today with Alan. Specific praise is good for all children, but especially for children with intellectual disabilities, because they need to learn positive social skills. And also it helps your regular students learn not to be afraid of people who might be a bit different. Help them learn that I can be a friend of this child, or I can help this child learn. Or maybe this child's good at something that I'm not, and he or she can show me how to perform better. Maybe it's drawing, music, some physical activity, whatever it might be. The child might be good in that and can show the class things or share interests. Main thing to remember with the inclusion of children with intellectual disabilities is have fun with the student. Let that child look forward to coming to your class and feel like, hey, I've got friends in here and they're going to help me, or we're all going to look out for each other and I'll have a great day. So you enjoy having students with intellectual disabilities in your class. You may find many of them, in fact most of them, very engaging, and they like to socialize too with the teachers as well as the other children, and you'll find that it can bring many hours of enjoyment to both yourself and the classmates by including these students. So I hope you will. Thank you for listening today, and I'll see you again next time.